You ever have one of those moments? You've got this brilliant research question, a real potential game changer, but you're just kind of stuck. Like, how do you actually go out and find the answer? Well, that's what we're diving into today. We're going to build that bridge from a simple question to a real discovery. And it all starts with the blueprint, the testable hypothesis.
Look, having a research question is awesome. It's like knowing you want to go to a specific destination. You might ask something like, does a new nursing intervention improve patient satisfaction? It's a great question, but it's just the destination. It's not the roadmap, right? It doesn't tell you which roads to take, what to measure, or how you'll know you've even arrived.
So, how do you build that roadmap? How do you turn that big, interesting question into a concrete plan that you can actually, test? Well, the answer lies in crafting a solid, testable hypothesis. That's our GPS. And this right here is the crucial step. We're moving from just a question to a real prediction. A hypothesis, you see, isn't just some random guess. It's a formal statement that takes your big, broad question and sharpens it into a specific, testable prediction. It's the turn-by-turn directions for your whole research journey.
I mean, think about it for a second. Without that specific prediction, your research can just wander off. You could end up collecting tons of data that's totally irrelevant. Or worse, you get to the end and you're just staring at numbers, struggling to figure out what they even mean. A good hypothesis gives you focus. It dictates your study design, who you talk to, even how you crunch the numbers. It's the thing that keeps the whole train on the tracks.
Okay, so what exactly is a hypothesis anyway? To really get why it's so much more than just an educated guess, we gotta look under the hood. Let's break down its anatomy, piece by piece. All right, here's the textbook definition, but let's make it make sense. It's a formal, testable statement that predicts a relationship between two or more variables in a specific population. Whoa, okay, that's a mouthful. But let's look at the keywords here. Formal, testable, predicts, relationship, variables, and population. Every single one of those words is doing some heavy lifting. They're all absolutely critical. I like to think of a good hypothesis as kind of like the sun in a solar system. It's the central point, and everything else orbits around it. Your population, your variables, the theory it's built on, how you're going to test it. Everything connects back to that one solid statement. So, when you're building a strong hypothesis, you've got this checklist. You need to identify who you're studying. That's your population. You've got to define the specific things you're measuring, your variables. Then you predict how they're connected. And finally, the whole thing has to be built on a solid foundation of what we already know. All right, let's put these hypotheses to the test. First up is our first big quality check. A hypothesis is pretty much useless if it's all vague and fuzzy or if you can't actually measure it. So the very first hurdle it has to clear is being clear and testable. First off, clarity. This is non-negotiable. Anybody, I'm talking another seasoned researcher, a student, your neighbor, should be able to read your hypothesis and know exactly what you're investigating. There can't be any wiggle room for misinterpretation. Using words like better or effective? Nah, that's way too vague. We need precision. And that leads us right into the next point, measurability. Your hypothesis has to be about things you can actually see, count, or measure in the real world. You can't really test a hypothesis about, say, goodness or some abstract feeling, right? You have to find a way to take those big ideas and translate them into something concrete, something you can actually put a number on. In that translation process, it's got a name. It's called creating an operational definition, and it's a huge deal. You see, we don't just study anxiety in the abstract. No, we study a specific score on the Hamilton Anxiety Rating Scale. We're not just looking at patient satisfaction. We're measuring the score on a standardized post-care survey. This single step is what takes a vague idea and makes it something you can actually test scientifically. Okay, here's a perfect example of this in action. The statement is clear, and it makes a prediction. The music therapy part, that's our independent variable, the IV. Think of it as the cause, the thing we're introducing or changing. And the heart rates, that's our dependent variable, the DV. That's the effect, the outcome we're going to measure to see if our change did anything. See? It's specific, it's measurable, and it's totally testable. Okay, so you've got a clear, measurable hypothesis. Awesome, you're halfway there. But we're not done yet. There's another huge quality check. Your hypothesis also has to be grounded in what we already know. And this might sound weird, but it has to be falsifiable. Right, so a really strong hypothesis doesn't just pop out of nowhere. It's more like adding a new brick to a wall that's already being built.
It has to connect logically to existing nursing theories or what other studies have already found. It's how your little piece of research joins the huge ongoing scientific conversation.
So this brings us to 3 absolutely critical rules. Your hypothesis has to be something you can check with real-world data. It has to be feasible, meaning you can actually do it with the time and resources you have. And here we go again, it has to be falsifiable. And trust me, that last one is a real game changer.
This idea is basically a cornerstone of the entire scientific method. Think of it this way. If there's no way to prove your idea wrong, then it's not really a scientific claim. It's more like a belief. The whole point is that science moves forward by trying to break ideas, to prove them false. Your study has to be designed in a way that the evidence could come back and say, nope, you were wrong. It has to be able to support or reject your prediction. Okay, so we've taken this thing apart, we've run our quality checks. But you might be thinking, why does all this academic stuff actually matter for me, on the floor, in the day-to-day world of nursing? That's a great question. Let's connect these dots right now. So let's wrap this up into a quick checklist you can use anytime. First, does it state a clear relationship? Second, are your variables actually measurable? Third, is it testable and, don't forget, falsifiable? And finally, is it built on existing theory? If you can tick yes for all 4, you are in fantastic shape.
And this is why it all matters so much. This whole process, all this careful work, it's the absolute foundation of evidence-based nursing. When we start with a strong, testable hypothesis, we get reliable, high-quality studies. And those studies are what give us the hard evidence we need to make better clinical decisions. Decisions that actually improve patient care and save lives.
So the next time you have that spark, that question about how to make patient care just a little bit better, wherever this, you have the blueprint now. You know exactly how to build the roadmap that takes you from that initial question to a real solid discovery. So the only question left for you is, what are you ready to go out and test?